Today I want to talk about tilt and shift lenses, and not from a technical use, kind of from more of a creative use. You can tilt a lens in front of a sensor or film to kind of decide the plane of focus, and by shifting the center of the lens axis against the center of the film plane, you can correct perspective and stuff like that. And that's why tilt shift lenses were always used for things like architectural photography. Anyway, I don't care about any of that. I want to talk about my experiences using this kind of thing for kind of like creative purposes, or kind of like to kind of spark a little bit of creativity and make some interesting photos, hopefully. Mirrorless cameras make it very easy to do things like tilt, definitely shift to a lesser degree, but still. The easiest thing you can do is get something like a tilt adapter. This is what I have here on the Sony. So this is an adapter that goes from a Sony mount into a Pentax K mount, and it lets you tilt the lens. The nice thing about this is that you can set the tilt to 0, and this is basically just a regular adapter, and you have a lens you can take photos regularly with as usual, without any modification. But if you tilt the lens to different degrees, as you can see, you can modify how the image is in focus and typically get like a thin sliver of stuff that is in focus in front of the lens. And then you can rotate the whole lens, so you can actually rotate that plane that is in focus. Anyway, I use this to spark a little bit of creativity. I've always been attracted to the idea of lost and found detail in an image. Let's say an image that is not always sharp everywhere, but where there's, I don't know, blurriness and darkness, and your eye has to go around the image trying to find where the detail is, and there's stuff that you keep seeing in the image as opposed to something that is straightforward, all in focus. Anyway, I did some photography with this on the Sony. One thing, if you're going to do a lot of tilt and a lot of shift, you want a lens that covers a bigger sensor or film area than the one you're shooting with, for obvious reasons. Otherwise you get a lot of vignetting and black stuff in there. Anyway, these adapters are a little bit limited in terms of the amount of shift, there's no shift here, the amount of tilt they give you, and obviously there's no shift at all. So I want to do something a little bit more free, and there's this idea of free lensing, which is holding a lens in front of a camera, obviously with all the light leaks that implies, right? So I wanted to make something like a free lensing adapter, and I went back and forth trying different things. I even 3D printed some bellows looking thing, but the thing that ended up being successful was to use actually a piece of bicycle inner tube, and I did this on the Fuji. This is a Fuji to Fuji close-up adapter. So that's basically a mount that is used to put some distance and mount the lens farther away from the sensor. And I'm wrapping the inner tube around that. And then on the other end, all I have is a Pentax K to screw mount adapter. That's usually what you use in a K-mount camera to mount a K-mount lens. So this has a lot more potential in terms of allowing you to tilt the lens quite a bit more than you could with the rigid adapter. So you can tilt it quite a lot. And that's why it's important to use a lens that covers a bigger area than the sensor you're using. So this is a full frame lens on an APS-C camera. You can shift it to some degree and you can tilt a lot. And if you're very careful, you can keep the lens straight and take a photo that is kind of what you could take without any special adapter, with just like a regular kind of adapted lens. So this becomes a great creative tool. It's really interesting to play with, and I think it's important to do this kind of experiments, especially to get rid of those times when inspiration goes away. It happens to me every once in a while that I feel totally uninspired to go out in the street and take photos, which is what I usually do. And I need these kind of gimmicks, let's call them what they are, they're gimmicks, that allow me to create by having some kind of limitation that is imposed. And it also is an excuse to build something, to make something that is not the usual boring lens that renders everything sharp, I guess. Anyway, yeah, it's important to do this kind of experiments, and I'm actually planning another video, maybe next week, maybe the other week, about some other gimmicks that I use sometimes and I have used. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with some of the images I made with this setup. And if you want to check out my real photos, go to my website, juanbuehler.com. And until the next video, cheers and goodbye.